very inspirational. So I'm really looking forward to sharing this particular interview with you.
In Luke 13, there's a moment where Jesus engages a woman in a synagogue. Now, the important thing here is to understand that even though later on women had a separate court in the temple, at this stage when they were still in the synagogue, it's open for women, for men, and for various kinds of approaches to religion, like we read of Sadducees, Pharisees. So Jesus' ministry is launched in a context where it's not homogeneous thinking. It's not just people that think in one direction. Like today, synagogues and churches would have a specific, like the Methodist or the Reformed synagogue. But over there, it was open. It was a public space. So first of all, these women in here, it says in Luke 13, verse 16, on a Sabbath, Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues, and a woman was there who had been crippled by a spirit for 18 years. She was bent over and could not straighten up at all. When Jesus saw her, he called her forward and said to her, "Woman, you are set free from your infirmity." Then he put his hands on her, and immediately she straightened up and praised God. Indignant because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, the synagogue ruler said to the people, "There are 6 days for work. So come and be healed on those days, but not on the Sabbath." The Lord answered him, "You hypocrites! Doesn't each one of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or donkey from the stall and lead it out to give it water? Then should not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan had kept bound for 18 long years, be set free on the Sabbath day from what bound her?" And when he said this, all his opponents were humiliated, but the people were delighted with all the wonderful things he was doing. Now, what strikes me about this passage is, number one, Jesus says to this man, he uses two extremes. First of all, he calls this woman a daughter of Abraham, which was unheard of. He elevates her dignity to a place where people were shocked, like only men were called sons of Abraham. And then he compares this man's hypocrisy, and he refers to animals. Now, if you see the context, the cultural context in which Jesus engaged women, you will understand that, especially from the Greek background, which influenced Roman thinking, which then had a profound effect upon Judaism, a woman was considered like an animal. In fact, Simonides, which came a little bit later than Homer, that wrote the first creation story of where a woman came about, Simonides said a woman came about by one of 10 animal sources: a donkey, a dog, a weasel, a fox. I think the most positive one is a bee. So when Jesus says to this man, "Your animal," you would have untied him, it's not an unfamiliar idea to them, because they believed that you could use a woman, you could enslave her, you could sell her, you could, in some cases, even you can kill her. So the civilization that had the worst attitude towards women were the Greeks. If you read their wise men and what they said, it is it's really shocking. But Jesus comes, and in that backdrop, he treats women with the greatest respect. And he spends the longest recorded conversation with the woman, the Samaritan woman at the well. So we see that very soon there was a following of women that went after him. And it says in Luke 8 verse 2 that some of these women supported him with their means. Also at the cross, when the men leave, Mary Magdalene remains, and his mother and several of the other women. So yeah, there was Jesus had a profound, I almost would dare to say, a revolutionary approach towards women. And
It seems again, that here, from almost the moment you come in, the Magdala stone, you come into this church, there's an honoring of the feminine, in this place. Now, you've also been having, I guess, interaction with women, in Israel and Arab women, etc. Can you speak to that and what the experience has been?
I think I just need to say this to create the context for it. It's not that there has been a male dominance and women were subjugated and now the scale is swinging to the opposite. It's not that. Jesus carried the heart of the Father. And in the Father's heart, it's just his family. There are sons and daughters. So when the prophet Joel says, I will pour out my spirit on your sons and your daughters, your men servants and your maidservants, he's laying the template for what Jesus would begin to live. And we're seeing now that in certain cultures, like for example the Arab culture, it is the first time ever that they are beginning to feel they have a voice. We have just completed last week, we've just completed an Arab Women's Conference, which was the 5th of its kind. And without going into too much detail, because it was very emotional and very sensitive, some of the things that happened there. But at this conference, we felt that we had to give men an opportunity to, or at least one man, an opportunity to speak on behalf of men. It's normally just women that lead women and teach women how the Holy Spirit flows and give them opportunity to get healed. So we had a gentleman, a fairly elderly gentleman that spoke, and he just apologized. He just said the wrongs done to women are ancient, and some of these cultures, without singling out, some of the pagan religious cultures, they view a woman as less valuable. So when a baby girl is born, they don't celebrate her, but in some cultures they actually try to get rid of her. So in the Arab culture, it's often just a case that in the family she is seen as the person that's supposed to be in the kitchen, be the servant, eat after the men, and then when it comes to church, she definitely does not have a voice. So this gentleman was a pastor. He was just apologizing from his heart and repenting and saying, we realize that the way that we viewed you has done damage to the value that the Father created in you. And we want to say we're sorry for that. And also he spoke about the sexual approach sometimes towards women, in which even though they might not be physically taken advantage of, there's a whole viewing. He just apologized, and when he did that, there was a very, very overwhelming response. There were many of the women that were brought to tears, and the next day we had to do deep ministry, healing and deliverance, because of the things that rose to the surface when he spoke. So we're seeing beautiful things happening in this land.
That's wonderful. That's it for this particular interview. Thanks for joining me. Really excited to take this ongoing journey with you as we keep bringing more content. If you haven't already, you really should subscribe to this channel. There's a lot of phenomenal content coming down the road into the future that you'll want to know about. Leave a comment down here. I think people would love to hear from you, and then you can hear from them too. If you liked it, go ahead and give a like. It only takes half a second, and share this with people that you care about. The world needs more light in it right now. So thanks for being with me. Hope to connect with you again soon.